I gotta get back.
Hey, you know how to play cards, kid?
I can play blackjack.
Hey, good. We'll have a game.
I gotta go dig.
Plenty of time for that. Anyway, maybe my wife will be home before long. You can wait for her while we play cards.
You think she'll be home, huh?
Well, sure, kid. Say, that voice in the ground, is it very strong?
No, it gets weaker all the time.
Sit down, Margaret. Let's play that game of blackjack. It's more fun than playing Screaming Woman.
I gotta go.
Well, stick around. My wife will be home in 10 minutes. Let's play. You deal first. Well, your luck's holding. You win again.
It's late. I gotta go now.
A few more minutes, kid. My wife will come home any time now. Your deal. Well, it's getting dark. I guess you can go now. Guess you'll have to see my wife some other time, huh?
Sure, Mr. Nesbit.
So long, kid.
Can you hear me? I'm sorry I took so long, but Mr. Nesbit insists that I stay and play cards. I kept thinking maybe you'd really come back like you said, but I guess he was just wasting time until you quit screaming. Are you still there? Maybe if I get down and put my ear on the ground, I could hear you better. Lady! Mrs. Nesbit, can you hear me? I'll hold my breath so I can hear better.
I loved you there. I loved you well.
Singing? She's singing. All those hours down under the ground in that box must have made her sort of crazy.
I loved you there.
Mrs. Nesbit, you'll be okay. All you need is some food and some air, and you'll be fine. Hang on, I'll get some help. Dad will help. I know we will. He used to love her once. He said he did.
So, there you are.
Dad, you got it!
You're going to get a licking. I told you not to leave your room.
She's not screaming anymore.
I told you not to talk about her.
She's singing now.
Singing? Why are you telling me these lies?
Dad, she's out there and she'll be dead soon if you don't listen to me. She's out there singing. It's a little song like, I loved you fair, I loved you well.
What did you say?
I said, I loved you fair, I loved you well.
Where did you hear that song?
I told you out in the empty lot just now.
That's Helen's song, the one she wrote years ago for me. You can't know it. Nobody knew it except Helen and me. I never sang it to anyone, not you or anyone.
I know!
Margaret, we have to hurry. Show me exactly where it was.
I was so happy I wanted to cry. My dad ran out to the empty lot and started digging, and lots of other people came and helped him.
No, dig over here. Get some more shovels. We need more people digging here.
Everything turned out fine, except for Mr. Nesbit.
Dig.
But most important, the screaming woman isn't screaming anymore.
Yeah?
We found the screaming woman.
No kidding.
Yeah, everything's fine. Hey, want to go dig for treasure?
Sure.
I'll meet you in the empty lot in 5 minutes.
That's when there's a monkey's uncle.
See you there.
The Screaming Woman was adapted from the story by Ray Bradbury. Featured in the cast were Rachel Jacobs, Beverly Rowland, Neil Barth, Mark Alston, Bryce Chamberlain, Coleman Creel, and Oscar Rowland. Original music by Roger Hoffman and Greg Hansen. Production assistant was Patrick Mead. Associate producer was Jeff Rader. Bradbury 13 was created, produced, and directed by Mike McDonough. Executive producer was Dean Van Eitert. This is Paul Frees speaking.
Sam Bargill did not see the blue sand ships looming up behind him. He was not aware of the inhabitants of the ships. Dark blue images, masked men with silvery faces and blue stars for eyes, men with carved golden ears, men with tinfoil cheeks and ruby-studded lips. Men following him. Martian men. Ray Bradbury's The Off-Season.
Span. Hey, Emmy. Honey?
Yeah?
Turn on the sign, would you?
The sign? What for?
Just do it.
There.
Ain't that beautiful? Sam's Hot Dogs. You know, it wasn't easy to get that neon up here in one piece, all the way from Earth.
Yeah, I know, Sam.
Gee, if the boys from the 4th Expedition could see me now, huh? All these years later, I finally got my dream place.
Yeah, whatever happened to them? Captain Wilder?
Yeah, Wilder.
And Spender?
Spender? That nut. He was going to save the planet. He killed a lot of good men. And Wilder, last I heard, he was off to Jupiter.
Yeah?
He's probably retired by now. If he hasn't been killed in some fool expedition. Too bad they aren't here today to see me. 20 years later. Hey, Emmy, look at this. I got something I want to show you.
Looks like junk.
It is not junk. It's glass and pottery. I thought I'd line both sides of the walkway with it. I've been collecting it up in the hills, huh? There's still lots of old Martian cities up there, you know.
Don't they call that looting?
Emmy. Here, do some sweeping while I arrange this stuff. Yes, sir. First man on Mars with a hot dog stand. Best onions and chili on 2 worlds. And what a location, huh? Right where 2 main highways come together.
2 dead highways.
Well, not for long, Emmy. When they start that mining project over there, trucks from the Earth settlement will be passing by here 24 hours a day.
Oh, sure.
Why, we might even have to put in some gas pumps. And pretty soon there'll be thousands of work rockets coming from Earth with 10,000 hungry customers.
Ha! I'll believe it when I see it.
They'll be here. Now, there. Finished. Yeah? How do you like it?
All that broken glass looks like an accident waiting to happen to me.
Well, I like it. And so will our customers. I tell you, this time next year we'll be rich. Thousands and thousands of hungry people, and all mine.
Sam?
Huh?
Here's your first customer.
You again? What are you doing here?
I've come to speak to you.
I told you not to come near here. You could catch the disease. You could die.
I have had the Earth disease.
Oh, why do you come down here to bother me? Go back to the hills. You belong, huh? Go on.
I have come for an important reason.
I don't care. I don't like Martians. I told you that this morning. How come I've been here 20 years and never seen a Martian? And all of a sudden you show up twice in one day. Leave me alone, can't you?
The days of the Earthmen on Mars are over.
Who says?
Earth is doomed. This very night.
Listen, you. Don't talk to me about Earth. I'm from Earth, New York City. I don't need you telling me what's happening on Earth. Pretty soon there'll be 10,000 men coming from Earth to work on this planet. And sooner or later, they've all got to pass by this hot dog stand. And most of them will stop in at least once or twice to have a bite to eat. And I'll be ready for them. And nobody, not even no Martian, is going to get in my way. You see this? It's a gun. After you left this morning, I got it out and loaded it.
Sam, be careful with that.
You will not listen? Then let me show you this. I have brought this for you.
Drop it. I don't know what it is, but drop it. Now get on your way.
It is important that you know.
You don't think I'll use this, huh?
Sam, don't. Oh, Sam.
Now, go on, get it, huh? Next time I won't shoot at the ground.
Tonight, watch the sky.
The sky, Sam?
Ah, he's nuts. Hey, look what he dropped.
Scroll with some kind of picture writing.
Martian scribbles. I can't read it. It's nothing. Forget it. Let's shut the sign off and go inside for a while. It wouldn't hurt to lock the doors either. Come on.
Sam? Getting dark. What are you doing out there?
Sweeping. The wind's blowing sand all over my clean walkways.
Who cares? There's no customers.
Well, there will be. You'll see. It may be quiet now, but...
Sam, listen.
What? I don't hear.
Look. Out there, look.
Emmy. Emmy!
Here they come.
They look like sand ships. But they can't be.
They look like it to me.
But they were all confiscated, sold to museums, sent back to Earth. I'm the only one in this whole territory who's got one and who knows how to run it.
Not anymore.
Come on, let's get out of here.
Why?
They're attacking. Those are Martian sand ships, Emmy. And I took a shot at one of those Martians this morning. Have you forgotten? Come on.
Well, where are we going?
Into town. Come on, get into the truck. Come on. Come on. Start, damn you. Start.
Oh, look at them. They're beautiful, bright blue sails.
Start. Start. No, it's no use. I've flooded it now.
There must be a dozen of those ships.
Quick, get out of the truck. The sand ship. Come on, come on. Get in, get in.
And let you drive me in a sand ship? No, thank you.
There's no time to argue. I've been using this ship the last few weeks to transport supplies. I can do it.
Don't get us killed in this thing.
Ah, there's nothing to it, really. I'll just let the sail out. Ah, there.
What happens now?
We should be moving. Oh, the anchor. I forgot to pull a sand anchor. Here. There. Now we're really moving.
Is it safe to go so fast?
Oh, sure. Isn't this great? I told you I could handle it. I showed them. Look at them, Emmy. We're leaving them in our dust.
Ah, they could have stopped you if they'd wanted. They just didn't trust.
Oh, come off it. I outran them. They just weren't quick enough, that's all.
Weren't they? They're getting closer. Look.
Don't worry. I've learned a few tricks with this thing. All I gotta do is
Go
move.
back.
What? Who said that?
Go back. Turn this ship around. Sam. Look behind you.
Huh? Who are you? What are you doing on my ship? Get off!
This isn't your ship. It's as old as our world. It sailed the sand seas 10,000 years ago, when the seas were whispered away and the docks were empty.
You're not real. You're some sort of vision or ghost.
Turn around and go back to the crossroads. We have need to talk with you.
No! You're trying to trick me. Now get off my ship.
You must return at once.
I mean it! Jump off or I'll shoot you.
Don't.
I'll count to 3, then I'm pulling the trigger.
I won't hurt you. Neither will the others.
1.
Listen to me.
Sam, listen to the girl.
2.
We only want to talk.
Sam!
3.
We need to...
Emmy. Did you see that? She's gone. She just turned into smoke. This is crazy. Emmy? Emmy, listen to me.
There's nothing to hear, Sam.
We'll be in town soon. Then we'll be safe. Then they'll see. I'll show them. They can't harass me and get away with it. I'll show them. I'll show everybody.
Go ahead. Show us, Sam.
Hey, here comes one of their old cities. A few bullets will fix all those crystal towers. Ha! Hey, ha! Hey, how's that, huh? Did you see that? Huh? No more city. Oops, I missed one. There. Emmy, look. They're closing in. The ships are cutting me off. I can't stop them. They've outnumbered me.
Stop the ship, Sam.
Oh, it's no use. Oh, I'm stopping. Oh, yeah, I'll put out the anchor. Emmy, there must be 100 of them. 100 of them. Don't say anything. I'll handle it. I didn't do anything. It was all a mistake. I'm an honest man. Just ask anybody. I just wanted to build the best little hot dog stand you ever saw, right back on the highway. The only hot dog stand on Mars, with the best hot dogs you ever tasted. You know, with chili and onions and maybe some orange juice. Look, don't hurt me. Here's my gun. Right here. You can have it. There. I give up.
Pick up your gun.
What?
Your gun. Pick it up. Put it away.
Oh, sure.
Now, turn your ship around and go back to your stand. We will not harm you.
You won't?
You ran away before we could explain. Please, return to the crossroads with us. Come.
Sure. We'll come back. You betcha. Hemmy, did you hear that? They aren't going to hurt us. They just want to talk. Come on, we're going back.
Sure, Sam, whatever you say.
Well, this is it. Sorry we don't have room for all of you inside, but...
Prepare yourselves. Prepare the viands. Prepare the foods and wines. For tonight is indeed a great night.
I don't understand.
Prepare your place of food and take this.
What is it?
Sam, that looks like what the other Martian tried to give us this morning. The scroll has the same picture writing.
It is a deed to all of the territory from the Silver Mountains to the Blue Hills, from the Dead Salt Sea to the distant valleys of moonstones and emerald.
For me? Mine?
Yours.
All of it?
100,000 miles of territory.
Do you hear that, Emmy? He's giving me all the land, as far as we can see. But why? Why are you giving me all this?
That's not all. Here, take these.
Look at this. 6 more scrolls. More land. I must own half of Mars. Emmy, did you hear me?
I heard.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Tonight is the night. You must prepare. Be ready.
Oh, I will be. What is it, a surprise? Are the Earth rockets coming earlier than I thought? You must know something I don't, eh? Thousands of men coming to work and eat. And me with the only hot dog stand on the busiest highway next to the busiest mine on Mars.
We leave you now. Prepare. The land is yours.
Oh, thank you. Thank you again. Come back sometime when you're good and hungry. It'll be on the house. Emmy, come on. We gotta get busy. All the hot dogs boiled, the buns warm, the chili cooking. We've got a big night ahead of us. Come on. That's all the onions. Oh, boy, am I happy, huh? I'm so happy I'm crying. Or maybe it's just the onions.
Yeah.
No, it's my lucky day, all right. Hey, how are those hot dogs coming up?
Enough to feed an army.
Oh, just think. That Martian set a surprise tonight. I was surprised enough when they gave me all their land. Can you believe it? Gee. I hope we've got enough napkins. I wasn't expecting all this business quite so soon. If the rockets show up tonight, there'll be 10,000 people on the highway by morning. Tonight of all nights, we'll be flooded. Just think of the money we'll make. Huh? Listen, you better start peeling some potatoes. I don't want to run low on French fries. Boy, what a night. Hey, wait. Forget the potatoes for a minute, huh? Let's run out and check the sky and see if those rockets are coming, huh? Come on.
All right.
Oh, It's a beautiful night out here. Smell that breeze. It almost reminds me of the sagebrush we smelled on that trip to Arizona one time. You see anything?
No rockets. Look at Earth tonight.
Good old Earth. Good old, wonderful Earth. Send me you're hungry and you're starved. Here's Sam Parkhill. His hot dogs all boiled. His chili cooking. Everything neat as a pin. Come on, Earth. Send me your rockets.
Come on, it's getting chilly out here.
Yeah. I guess we should finish up inside. The rockets. You hear them? The Martians were right. Tonight is the night.
No, Sam, not the rockets. Look.
What is it?
It's Earth.
Oh, it can't be. It can't be Earth.
You mean it couldn't be Earth? It's caught fire.
No.
It's burning.
It's not Earth. It's not possible. It's not.
Well, switch on more lights. Turn up the music. Open the doors. There'll be another batch of customers along in about 1 million years or so. Oh, great place for a hot dog stand. Yes, sir.
No. No.
Let you in on a little secret, Sam. Looks like this is going to be an off season.
Ray, as I discuss your stories with other people, I'm very often asked, where did he get the idea for that story? Let's take the Velt, for instance. Where did you get the idea for that?
Well, I learned years ago just to stand back and let ideas run over me. In other words, not try to think stories out, but to feel them out. Once you get an idea, then rush to the typewriter and get it done. And let it develop itself. Learn to trust your intuition, whatever that happens to be. We don't know what it is. It's a mystery. But if you crammed yourself with notions and poetry and concepts and scientific ideas over the years, you're bound to have a lot of mulch in there you don't know about. Plus, everything from the moment you were born, plus months before you were born that you don't really remember, all of this has been put away in your head for a lifetime. And your job as a writer is to drag it out in the open, screaming and yelling. You can't think it out because thinking gets in the way of the process. Intellectualizing is dangerous to the creative process. So what you do is get the smallest idea that's exciting. And you can do this by word association. I've learned to do this in my last years in high school. And the older I got, the more I did it. In the case of the Velt, I word associated one day. Went to the typewriter, just typed anything came into my head. I like to make lists of nouns. And then say to yourself, okay, the night, the attic, the basement, the blue bottle, etc. And then you see what you put in the bottle or what's in the attic. In this particular case, I typed the words, the nursery, one morning. I said, nursery where? In the past? No. Present? No. What about the future? That's more interesting. What would a nursery in the future be like? So I began to think what I would want to put in it or what children would want to put in it. And I ran to the typewriter. Then I just started typing, making up things to put into the nursery. And in order to talk about this nursery, I thought, what the heck? I'll have a man coming home from work one afternoon, and his wife is in the kitchen surrounded by machines. And they began to talk about the nursery. And she complains. Well, I don't know what she's complaining about. So I follow him down the hall. I'm typing like crazy here. I don't know what's going to happen. She says, the nursery is broken. Well, I don't know what's going to be in the nursery. We walk down the hall. I'm typing. Open the door, and you step in, and by gosh, there's Africa. And the hot sun, the veld land, the boma trees, the the lions feeding over in the heat and this terrible smell of dust and blood. And the sun strikes me, and I'm typing like crazy. Next thing you know, the room is the villain. Africa is there. I don't know what it's doing there. And suddenly the children are mentioned. They've been playing in the room, and they've been fixating on Africa. And boom, the next thing you know, 2 hours later, the story is finished. Now, when I sat down that morning, I had no idea that I was going to be doing that short story. But obviously, I'd been thinking about Africa since I was a child. That was all put away. I fell in love with Africa to begin with when Tut was brought out of his tomb. That's when I was 3 years old. I remember seeing the pictures in the paper. 3 isn't very old, but the pictures of those gorgeous sarcophagi and the various things found in the tomb so impressed me, I never forgot it. Well, that's Northern Africa, of course. Became a super fiend for Tarzan. So that all goes into your subconscious. And all of a sudden, when you're 30, you press a button, the nursery, the veldt, boom, and all that African lore comes springing out at you as a surprise. Now, this is the only way to write that I can think of. It's got to be fun. If it isn't an adventure, if it's not a surprise, it's not going to be any good. You can't get in the way. And if you do, you become a bore, you become an intellectual writer. There's nothing worse. I can't think, there's very few intellectual writers in the history of the world who could be entertainers. The one exception is George Bernard Shaw. He's almost alone now. All the other bright people managed to fall over their own feet.
Ray, what sort of writers have influenced you over the years, or have any?
The list is endless. I probably love other writers more intensely than almost any other writer in history. I've written more short stories, more plays, more poems, more essays about other writers than any other writer I can think of. I've written poems about Edgar Allan Poe, Emily Dickinson being my mother, a poem like Emily Dickinson, Where Are You? Herman Melville called your name last night in his sleep. Did a whole thing on Hawthorne in poetry. I wrote poems about Thomas Wolfe when I was 19 and 20. Did a short story about him, which became a radio drama with Norman Corwin. And it's just endless. Herman Melville as an influence. Shakespeare as an influence. George Bernard Shaw has been a constant friend now in my life since I was 30 or so. And I knew Charles Lawton 25 years ago, and he brought a lot of these people back into my life. I used to go over to his house. He'd stand on his hearth and give performances of Lear and Othello and Hamlet just for me, one person. He was that kind of man. He was a teacher of language. He was a person who put me back on my own resources. This is what Charles Lawton did for me. And he reintroduced Shakespeare into my life. I already was in love with him, but more intensely so after Lawton gave me permission to love my language again. I knew that something was wrong with me through the years. I knew I was writing a different kind of science fiction, and a lot of other science fiction writers were making fun of me because I obviously was so in love with the great poets, Shakespeare, Robert Shaw, Emily Dickinson, Yeats. The list is endless, huh? And so all these things have gone in to my background, along with the primitive things, with the African background and with King Tut and with my love of astronomy. So I've been lucky that I've fallen in love in dozens of ways, not just one way. And it's given me a richer life than some other writers have had. I am always amazed that people don't fall in love with more things. How can you not? How can you not love movies? Huh? But there are a lot of people who allow a certain kind of snobbishness to come into their lives at a certain age and look down their noses at movies, look down their noses at TV. Well, there's plenty to look down your nose at, but there's a lot of good stuff, too. And I saw King Solomon's Mines again the other night on TV, and I'd seen it originally when it was in movie houses 30 years ago and loved it. And I was reminded again of how special those romances are. Films like She, films like King Kong, huh? The old radio shows, Buck Rogers, Vic and Sade, Chandu.
Well, what happened after that as far as your involvement in radio drama?
Well, I just, in high school, in junior high school and high school, when the radio shows would learn to write by listening to radio shows. Every night when Chandu went off the air, I found some of my old scripts the other day down in the basement. I would sit down and by hand transcribe the whole show. So I learned how to write 15-minute radio shows when I was 12 years old from Chandu. And when Buck Rogers came along the next year, he did the same thing. And Tarzan in 1934, I believe it was, I listened to those, Little Orphan Annie, right on up through time. And then when I was in high school, in typing class, I would type scripts for George Burns and Gracie Allen. I got to know them, hung around the studios down in Hollywood and downtown Los Angeles. At one time in 1934, there were no radio audiences for big broadcasts. And I got to know George and Gracie. And George Birds took me and a friend in to this theater in downtown L.A. And the curtain went up, and my friend and I were in the front row, empty theater, two of us. And the Burns and Allen show was broadcast for the two of us that night. Huh? We were the only audience.
Let's talk for a minute about some of the themes that seem to reoccur in your stories. I look back on And the Moon Be Still as Bright, and there seems to be a theme of not changing things, leaving things as they are. This seems to also reoccur in A Sound of Thunder. Is this a conscious effort on your part?
I think it's just, you do it without knowing it. I've never noticed until later that these themes are there, and then people point them out. I say, I'll be darned, that's interesting. I think it has to do with a reverence for time and place. And I think it's inbuilt. I think it's genetic. I think I was born with a certain kind of melancholy sense for place and time, and that I respected anything like that. If I go into an old city or I go into a burial ground, there's a sense there of the ghosts of the past that I think has to be respected for whatever reasons. You don't want to get too mystical about it, but you do get an overwhelming thing. I had a really shocking, stunning experience at Normandy 5 years ago. I visited there, the American burial ground in Normandy, France, with my wife one afternoon, and we were destroyed by the experience, utterly destroyed. The weight of all those dead people was simply fantastic. Now, it's very hard to know if you bring all that with you as baggage from your knowledge of the war and our involvement in Europe over a period of 30 years or so, or whether there's something else there that says, hey, remember, here we are, remember, don't ever forget. But it crushed us. We had to get out of there. We were in tears.
Well, that brings to mind your story, There Was an Old Woman, and your theme of encountering death and facing death, and that seems to also reoccur in Kaleidoscope.
Yeah, I think we're all working. A lot of people don't like to talk about it, but I think you have to be very honest that we're competing all the time with time. Time is running out. And I sensed this when I was very young, that I was in a competition with death. I had to get my work done. And every time I put a new short story in the mail, especially a novel, but what a triumph that is, because you really went up, huh? You say, okay, death, I've won this time. And you're not going to win forever. And as you get even older, it's even more clear that your time is running out. So I've been finishing a new novel after 10 years' work during the last few months. And I always feel I'm fighting against that thing. Just so much time is allotted to me. And I'm very privileged to have been able to live this long and write so much. But I've got a huge cargo to leave behind me, huh? And I'm so proud of that. I'm so happy that I did it. And I cannot comprehend people who don't want to leave something behind.
There's a quote on the back of some of your books by the New York Times, which calls you the world's greatest living science fiction writer. Is that how you'd like to be remembered by future generations?
Oh, gee, I don't know. I never did see that quote, and I often wondered where it came from. No, I would like to be known as a magician, a magician of ideas, and when people spoke of me, they would speak of their favorite magician, who was able to do things that no one else could do. I could work illusions. I could make you believe. I mean, in listening to some of these radio shows that you've done, well, if you start tearing them apart, they're unbelievable. You know, really, I have situations on Mars where there's no atmosphere. Now, if you look at it scientifically, come on, dark they were in GoldenEye, it simply doesn't work because there's no atmosphere there, and they couldn't be running around that way. And a man couldn't build a rocket ship. But then if you relax and say, what I was doing was a metaphor, and you go with a metaphor, you say, okay, this guy's building a rocket in his backyard. Can't be done, but since he's doing it, Brad Murray makes me believe it. Well, I'll go with him. He's a nice guy. And you go with a metaphor finally, you say, oh, yes, I wouldn't mind being a Martian myself and waking up some morning and looking in the mirror, and there are the golden eyes, and I know the change has begun.
Ray, of all the books and stories and poems you've ever written, do you have a favorite?
Oh, so many, you know, but one that the older I get and the more junk comes on TV, like The Day After a couple of months ago, you know, about the atom war and the destruction of the world and all that junk, which I refused to watch, you know, because I could see it coming. I knew it'd be big now. And we had 48 hours of talk before, then it, and 48 hours more of banal talk after. And I remembered back to my story, There Will Come Soft Rains, which told the same story, but told it in 3 pages, and it was dramatized on radio 34 years ago, and I think it took about 12 minutes, maybe 14. And it said more in 14 minutes than this big, overblown 2-hour show, because what it did was simply take all the people away and show you a house that went on talking to itself and performing and reading poetry and entertaining and lighting cigars and making dinner and cleaning the dishes and putting out the cards and watering the lawn and putting the people to sleep even though they weren't there. And finally the house burns up and the house tries to save itself, and the next morning there's nothing left of the house except one big computer panel with some tapes in it playing the poetry and reciting on and on through all the dawns to come. So the house has its own life, and the house is the metaphor for the family. And it tells you more about nuclear war in a short compact than all the big pieces of nonsense, I think.
Ray, one of the things you've been able to do very successfully is take everyday, ordinary people and place them in fantastic and sometimes futuristic settings. How did you become a science fiction writer?
I blundered into science fiction through doing it all wrong for a while. I think we all blunder into certain kinds of writing and do it wrong because we're busy imitating other people. We have heroes like H.G. Wells, Jules Verne, or a lot of my science fiction friends, Robert Heinlein and Lee Brackett, and others that I knew back when I was 18, 19, 20 years old. So you're so busy imitating them, you're doing everything wrong. At the same time, I blundered into the weird tale and began to dredge up out of my subconscious some very personal remembrance of times in my childhood, and stumbled onto a short story like The Lake, which was a real incident out of the time when I was around 8 or 9. And all of a sudden, in the middle of that story, I began to cry, and I knew I was doing something good. I stumbled on something. And as time passes, you say, hey, why don't I take that personal approach that I'm using in the weird tale, things out of my past, ghosts of the past that I'm using, and apply that over in the science fiction field? Because I'm trying to do all these things like imitating John Carter or Lee Brackett, or Stark stories about Mars. And it just wasn't working, you know. You can't imitate. So I wrote a short story about 2 boys who wanted to be rocket pilots. And I think it was called The King of the Great Spaces. And that was rejected by every magazine in the field because it just wasn't science fiction. Just a story of 2 boys who wanted to be rocket pilots. And finally appeared, I believe, in Famous Fantastic Mysteries when I was around 24. And that was a changeover. I realized then I had to write about people, not symbols of people, but real people, and put them in these fantastic situations. And then everything would be believable, because these are just ordinary folks,
You already mentioned some of the stories that you wrote were created from lists of words, word association stories. Did you write these just for fun, or is there really some message there you're trying to give us?
Everything's fun for me. If it isn't fun, I don't want to do it. And it may very well be that inadvertently or indirectly I am doing a teaching lesson, I find out later. But if the fun isn't there, then the lesson isn't worth it. Anyone that sets out to write a socially important novel is going to be a bore. I can't think of, and if you can think of one, I'd be willing to agree with you. I can't think of any socially significant novels out of the 30s written to change our minds about the world that are worth a damn today. The only novel I can think of that has a slight tinge of that is Grapes of Wrath, but that to me is a novel about a family and a man and a place and a movement, and it's only indirectly a semi-political or social tract. If Steinbeck had applied some of his earlier techniques to that novel, he would have ruined it. He was much more socially conscious a few books before that, and they don't read as well as a result. You cannot go out to cure the world.
And yet you wrote Fahrenheit 451, which was a very important social
But it was an adventure, first of all, and I fell in love with the idea of a fireman who burned books, and that to me was so terrific, it was irresistible. And then once you start talking to Montag and discover he has discovered books and he wants to read them, then I say, well, heck, go read them and I'll follow. So in 9 days I wrote the novel, and it was a lark.
Are we any closer to George Orwell's concept of 1984 or your concept in Fahrenheit 451?
Well, most of us write novels to prevent futures, not predict them. So I think we're all moral writers of fables. I think Jules Verne was that way. H.G. Wells most certainly was. I think we all want to change the world, and the way to change it is to occasionally scare it and say, if you don't behave, Santa Claus isn't coming, and something's going to happen to you, something terrible. So you scare people with your stories of futures you don't really believe in. You just are a little afraid of. So we're no closer to 1984 now in the United States than we ever were. We're a very healthy, self-aerating, revolutionary, truly revolutionary country.
Are you a moody person? Are there times when you just can't write?
No, I don't allow that to happen. We mustn't. That is that's self-pity of the worst sort. You mustn't allow that to happen. If these moods happen, it means something is wrong with the way you're living. They're a warning. It's like a taste for salt, and you immediately feel you're thirsty, and you go drink some fresh water. A week,